Welcome everyone to week 4 of 9 weeks with the natural way to draw. And we're going to be diving into 2 new exercises in our call this week. So we're going to be talking about something completely different, weight and modeled drawing. So kind of get a long break from the memory drawing and the potential imaginative drawings of the past couple weeks. And I think y'all are going to really like this one. It's a whole new world. So if you don't mind, unless you have any pressing questions before we get started, I'll be going through our homework for the week. Yes, Diane, I see a hand.
What is a contact gesture? People over there were posting contact gestures.
Contact gesture.
Oh, I use that term with mine contact contour, because I was just playing with the idea that people were in contact a year ago, and that was a really important part of the 2 dancers I did that I posted, Diane. So I just made a long term.
Okay, you invented. And so down around it.
It's so topical. They didn't need to have it back when Nicolaides was writing, because people were allowed to be in contact.
Oh my God. Socially distant Nicolaides. No naked.
Well, perfect. Yeah, great work in the post this week, and thank you all so much for your patience with me not posting as much. I promise I've been drawing. I'm going to upload them soon. But man, I was just out last week. So yeah, thanks again for your patience.
You look so much better.
Oh, I feel like a whole new person. So thank you for your well wishes. I really appreciated it, and it really kept me going, seeing everybody posting and still drawing in the group. So thank you. And with no further ado, if you don't mind muting yourself, or if you don't, I'll go ahead and mute you in a second here, as we dive in to week 4 of 9 weeks with the natural way to draw. So here we are in the course, and I've gone ahead and already opened up our week 4 drawing schedule. So you can find this by clicking the actual title, week 4, whenever you get down to our post. And I just wanted to mention again, even if you haven't been keeping up, or if you started a week or 2 later, just go at your own pace through the past weeks, or jump in with us, whatever feels best for you. The key for our 9 weeks together is that we're aiming to draw 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. And we are going to be following these drawing guides on our way through. So as you can see here, week 4 gets us back to the 5-minute warm-up to get started. This week, every day, we will warm up with a little 5-minute gesture drawing. I'm guessing it might you might be able to draw 3 to 5, maybe 7 if you're fast, or 10 gestures. I did not write down the number for any of the assignments for this week, because by now I'm hoping you're getting a little bit more confident in just drawing at your own pace and doing what feels right for you. So there's no rule about how many to draw. Maybe you draw 1, like for cross contour. Even in 15 minutes, I'm going to draw 1 cross contour most likely. But for gesture, you can draw 5, you can draw 7, whatever. You can see we've got a whole lot of weight drawing. We're going to learn about that next. We'll go over what weight drawing is, do 2 practiced weight drawings, and model drawing. So 10 and 15 minutes of model drawing on day 4 and 5. And we're also doing a little bit more cross contour, because cross contour is a key component of the model drawing that we're going to be doing. So we'll see that in a second. So to access this, you can download the PDF from this week 4 guide, or the week 4 drawing guide here in the course. And I did want to just give a shout out to Nicolaides. This particular chapter is a really good one, and you can download the book and view the full text by clicking the link here, and that'll download the full Nicolaides course. This chapter is on page 32. So, oops, here we go. So we're not doing Nicolaides homework, but we'll be talking about form, weight, heaviness, talking about the bulk of things. And this is just a particular chapter that nobody says it like Nicolaides does. So highly recommend you read that this week. So let's talk about weight drawing. This is a quote from Nicolaides. We may think of form as the three-dimensional shape of weight. So we're already getting kind of out there. And in artistic terms, form is three-dimensional. It's got height, width, and depth. And depth is the one that we most often are challenged by because our piece of paper that we're drawing on is 2D, it's flat. It only has height and width. So we're creating an illusion whenever we create depth on the page, that 3D form. So shape is the word for when things are just 2D, they're flat. Whenever you are working on this throughout the course, you can always come back here and read this super in-depth. But whenever we're drawing weight, one thing that I would recommend that you do is you can either scribble with your pencil, or you could use the side of your pencil to create kind of more of a smudge as opposed to a line. We are getting to a whole different realm instead of like the outline and the linear aspect of drawing into trying to draw the weight of it. And one thing that Nicolaides does such a good job of is he really asks us to get into a different way of thinking about drawing. So instead of when we did contour drawing, you're imagining you're reaching out and touching the model and tracing the outline. When we're doing a weight drawing, we're imagining that we're feeling where the heaviest part of the figure or the form is, and we're gonna start drawing what Nicolaides says from the inside out. So the example I think of is if you were going to draw planet Earth and you were looking at the planet Earth modeling for you, you would see basically like a marble or a sphere. In this exercise, to draw a weight drawing of the planet Earth, to start from the center would mean that you're starting from the imagined inner core of the planet Earth. Like you're going to draw the molten lava inside the planet's core and then kind of spiral your way out from the heavy part in the middle all the way outward. So you can see it's really out there. Nicolaides is testing us. But you can see in this model, it looks like they're using charcoal, but the artist has started by creating a heavier weight line and really focusing the depth and the scribble in the inner core of the figure, and the places that feel lighter, that are not carrying weight, not as heavy, are lighter. Mm-hmm. So these may look realistic, they might not look super realistic. The key to a successful weight drawing is that you're sensing the heaviness and the structure of this three-dimensional thing that you're drawing. So, any immediate questions before we dive into a practice one? Yes, Zach. Hold on, let me unmute you here. I can't unmute you. You try muting yourself. Sorry.
Sorry for that. Can we do this with a pen, or do you advise us to use a pencil?
I'm going to be using a pen, but this works really well in pencil.
Okay, thank you.
It works great with just your old-fashioned number 2. Instead of using the sharp tip of the pencil, using the wide edge. Either way is good. And I'm happy to do a demonstration before we get started. Also, I'd like to just say for this, you do not have to do a human figure. If you'd like, you could absolutely do any object around you. A few notes from Nicolaides. And one more thing, don't think about light and shadow. So we're not thinking about what this thing that we're drawing looks like from the outside, but where its heaviness is. So the light and dark pattern doesn't matter. So one last quote for Nicolaides, and I'll do a quick demo. Weight and mass. You may feel that the thing that you are trying to respond to might be called the mass or volume rather than weight. It is true that you are learning to represent the mass or bulk of anything you draw, but it is necessary to think further than that. A paper cup and a silver cup may take up the same amount of space, but the one is a flimsy and unsubstantial thing, while the other is strong and heavy. A glass test tube and a piece of half-inch lead pipe, in spite of their similar size and shape, have an important difference in weight. Draw a feather pillow and an iron bar, or alternate studies of clouds and stones, thinking of their weight. So even if two objects look exactly the same from the outside, the same 3D height, width, and depth, we really want to try and concentrate our pencil or pen marks to show heaviness. I'm not going to say I'm an expert in this, but I'm going to do my best to do a quick demo for you guys. I'll pop up lineofaction.com. And for this particular little demo, I'm just going to do a 60-second drawing. And this is the model I'm looking at. Are y'all able to see me in the top little corner? Yeah, Linda, you can?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Okay. So, got my pen here. Looking at this model who's standing here, I'm thinking, okay, where is the weight of this model?
Her legs and her hips.
Yeah, definitely in the legs and the hips. I'm going to start right at the crux of her groin, in the hips, really concentrating, almost as if I'm imagining that I'm drawing her pelvic bone and where that weight would sit, and almost like kind of thinking as an engineer, going down her thigh. I feel like she's got a whole lot of weight stacked on that back foot. Sorry, I'm drawing backwards. It's kind of not normal for me. You are allowed to look on this exercise, by the way. This is not a blind drawing. Oops, I'm going to go back just to finish the demo. Ideally, of course, in proportion. And so I'm starting to draw from the inside out. I would continue to kind of circle back wherever I see weight, scribbling where, you know, in lighter lines where I don't see as much weight. So if I notice more weight on one side, like she's leaning more on one half of her leg or using these muscles more than on the other side, using the muscles on the other side of her leg, I might not draw those much at all or just leave them very light, but the areas where I feel that she's pressing down the most weight, I'm going to concentrate my pen marks. And I just continue throughout the body. I wouldn't leave, or I wouldn't make as many marks in areas where she's not holding a lot of weight. So because, as y'all mentioned, she's got most of her weight in her hips and feet, the finished drawing might end up looking something like this. So this is a different take on the scribble.
I have a question.
Please, yes, Bob.
I thought you were sort of talking about the density of the object, but it seems like you're talking about more of how the weight is distributed by gravity to the ground. Is that?
Yes.
And not so much the density, or?
I would say yes, and if I'm able to convey density, then I would try to the best of my ability. So depending on how long I'm going to spend on that drawing, if it's a figure and we're looking at a model who's in movement, in that case, I'm going to be thinking about where is this model's weight distributed. But if I was drawing, as they mentioned in the example, 2 cups, and 1 cup is paper and 1 cup is silver, I would not spend as much time. I would do a very light version of a cup for the paper versus.
Okay.
Great, thanks. Any other questions before we try this all together? Yes, Ellie. Sorry, let me see if I can. Yeah, I can't unmute people for some reason, so.
Oh, am I unmuted now?
Now you are, yes.
Oh, good. I just wanted to ask, how long are you typically supposed to spend on these weighted drawings?
Well, the exercises we'll work on today give you 10 to 15 minutes, or I'm sorry, throughout the week. I would probably only spend maybe 2 minutes, or maybe, depending on the figure that I'm working from, 2, 3, maybe 5 would be a long time. I'm guessing it'll take me 2 minutes. But whatever feels good for you, Ellie. When you're working through it, if you finish in a minute, that's fine.
Cool. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Yes, Linda. Mm-hmm.
So then we're really not making very large drawings. We're making drawings that are maybe 4 or 5 inches tall. Is that right?
That's about how large the drawing I just drew was. However, I think this would be an amazing drawing to do really large, like in charcoal. If I had that on hand, that would be what I would draw with. But if using a pen.
Well, I have a Conti crayon, so that's similar to
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
In that case, you might want to draw bigger because you'll be able to go dark very quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions before we do a practice round together? All right, let's dive in. So I'll be sharing the screen. I'm going to put 2 minutes on the clock this time, and we'll see how 2 minutes feels. And this will be a good way for you to gauge whenever you're doing this on your own, how many you might expect to do in a 10-minute session. So share our model here. Oh, Judith, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. What was that? You'll have to unmute yourself. I don't know what's going on with my Zoom tonight. I'm not able to mute or unmute people. It must be a little fluke usually. That's not a problem. Sorry, Judith. Oh,
No, that was me. Did you say you're doing it for 2 minutes?
I'm going to set us a timer for 2 minutes.
Okay.
And when the 2 minutes is done, y'all let me know if you really need more time. Okay. So 2 minutes on the clock. We're beginning our first weight drawing together. And begin. Just 20 seconds left. And time. So Is that plenty of time for everyone? I finished about 30 seconds early, so 90 seconds might be good for y'all as well. So let me show off real quick what I ended up with, and I'd love to see anybody who wants to show their work. So I thought she really had a lot of her weight centered in her hips, sitting on the chair, on this folded leg more so than perhaps on this extended leg. And I noticed the two things that I wanted to emphasize for y'all are the form, the three-dimensionality of sometimes circling through almost as if you were doing a contour, thinking about that, the volume, as we mentioned, and proportion is another key one, which will really make a lot more sense when we get to our next exercise. But I do want to make sure that I am still staying true and accurate to the proportions of the model. Anyone want to show off or have questions? Yes, Zach. And Barbara, you're next. Excellent work. Very nice.
Terrific.
Yeah, I really like how you did that. And Barbara, also excellent work. I like how we're seeing that consistency of reading the model with the same weight distribution. Bob, do I see you ready to share? Very nice. Yeah, great work. Yeah, even the weight of the breasts hanging down. That's all, even the details can really show that volume. Judith, beautiful. Same attention to detail. Excellent. And Carol, I see you. Let me pop that one up. Oh, and she even did the chair. Excellent. I like how you're using the side of your pencil. So you can see how she doesn't have a sharp point to her pencil, but a broad kind of swath of graphite. And Linda Halpert, I heard you had a question or you wanted to share? Oh, great, with that Conti crayon. You can really see that heaviness when you're using a different medium. That's excellent work. Maria, beautiful. And Maria, so that one is a little bit more on the contour side, and I see it's a very well done proportion, but you've got that detail of like the belly button and the knee. Think less like you want it to be a drawing that looks pretty at the end, which I know can be painful, and more a scribble that shows like almost the ghost of where a person would be sitting. But yeah, very nice. Ellie, let me pop you up here. Beautiful work, very nice, yeah. And you know, one thing that really helps me is following the spine line. That can help connect it because you got sort of the stacks of where the weight is, and I think following the spine line also helps show where those different levels of heaviness and muscle are seated along the model. So a lot of us all kind of spotlighted a lot of the same areas. But I like some of y'all's methods better than my scribbly pen. I need to get to my charcoals. Okie dokie. So I think you guys actually did such a great job of that. I think we can move right ahead to our next assignment, which is, let me share my screen again, modeled drawing. Let's get out of here real quick. And you're all, of course, free to use something besides line of action, but it is pretty handy to have that around. Okay, so once you've conquered weight drawing, we then move on to model drawing. This is the other new exercise that we go through during this week, model drawing. And our quote from Nicolaides on this: move across the side of the figure exactly as if you were passing your hand over it. And does that sound familiar? Oh, Diane, I hear you saying something, but you're muted. Contour, yes, exactly, contour. So it's exactly like our contour or cross contour exercises that we've been working on. At the same time, we see that heaviness and the three-dimensionality that we're thinking of with weight drawing. So when we do a model drawing, the way I like to think about it is you're going to begin by doing a weight drawing, those scribbles, and really focusing in on where the heaviness of the model is, or the, still life or whatever you're drawing. And then you're going to go back on top of that and do a cross contour drawing. So first you find the weight, and then you build it up like a sculptor, imagining almost as if you're passing your hand or your pencil across the figure. So we'll practice this one also. And again, this is a little out there, so please do download and read the Natural Way to Draw book. This whole section that starts on page 32 is well worth your time. And I go into detail a little bit more about how to do this in the description here of model drawing. Another thing that's very important when we think about model drawing, and this is much better for pencil or charcoal, is the pressure, the amount that you press down on the page is going to help show that feeling of like passing your hand over the model. So what Nicolaides recommends is that in areas that seem to come out toward us, so here you see perhaps the side of her arm is overlapping, it's closer toward us, it would be sticking out with more volume. The pen mark is lighter. So go light on areas that come out. But in areas that are recessed, that are fading away from you, you can press down harder, as if you're trying to push them away. And this is something you really just have to practice to be able to really get. So give yourself a lot of room to make mistakes on this one and experiment. So we're going to practice with this one as well. Any immediate questions before we dive in?
Yes, I have a question.
Please, Gail.
The drawing that you had prior to this, where the two figures were together,
Mm-hmm.
is this meant to be the one on the left looking at it? Is that supposed to be the scribble drawing? And this is the fills in? Is it meant to be the same? Because it doesn't look to me like they're the same pose.
Right. And
so what's the difference between these two, and how do they relate to each other?
Great question. This is directly from the book. And what Nicolaides tells us, these are student drawings. Bulk up the form as if you were modeling with clay. Different students may work in different ways, and yet all be right.
So both of them are meant to be modeled poses or model drawing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Two versions.
Two versions.
Okay.
And this is, again, why art can be so very subjective. We're all going to end up having completely different approaches to this. As long as you are conceptually in your mind thinking of heaviness, thinking of weight, using your own interpretation of what it means to you to trace the outline and the contour of the model and really feel like you've got your hands on it, that's the important part. That's the process we want to get into the zone with. So there's many ways that you can do this and still be right. I know that drives the more rule followers among us crazy. Great. So let's give it a go and see what we can do. So I'm going to give us, I guess 5 minutes. And if everybody looks like they're finished and you look back up at the camera, I'll know that we're done early. We might check in around 4 minutes or something. Yes, Linda Halpert.
Is there a particular softness of pencil that works better with this?
I would say anything above a 2B. So if you look on the side of your pencil, the typical yellow pencil is great. That's a number 2B.
Okay, so we're looking at the HBs or the H's.
Yeah, an H would
No,
be
too hard.
okay, but too light.
Okay.
And the only exception might be a 5B or above would probably be too dark.
Okay. Thank
Mm-hmm. Okie dokie. So step number 1, everyone, we start with a weight drawing. Begin by thinking of this as a weight drawing. Once you feel like the weight has been established, it's more of a cross contour. So the weight drawing is also an opportunity for you to get your proportions nailed. So let's do this. 5 minutes on the clock. Is this all right for everybody?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. We're about 2 minutes in. So it's only at this point I'm switching to now thinking of this as a cross contour. I just did my weight drawing. Now I'm going to start imagining I'm tracing the figure with my pen, going light where things pop out at me, pressing in more firmly where things appear to recede. Thinking about that third dimension of depth.
Sorry, Jessica, I'm gonna have to leave. I have a family problem.
Sorry about that, Judith. The replay will be up soon.
Okay,
Have a good rest of your night. Hope it all works out.
thanks. Can't even figure out how to get out of here.
The bottom corner, you might have to
I
push.
got it.
Okay.
Bye, everyone. Have a
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, only 20 seconds left. Would y'all like some more time?
Yeah.
No.
Some yes, some no.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give us just one more minute on that last one. I think most of us are still drawing. Bob's a speed demon. So this helps answer the question, how long to spend on each one of these? For some of us, much longer than others. I'm gonna wrap it up in the next 30 seconds, even if it's not as good as you might make it on your own time. Okay, and let's just go ahead and finish up there. Let me go ahead and pause that. Okie dokie, how was that for everyone? Let me show y'all how mine ended up, and we'll bounce around and see everybody's work. So hopefully y'all can kind of tell from this, it began with the weight drawing, thinking a lot, maybe too much even about the spine. I don't know if that's really necessary, but I felt like, of course, she had more weight down in her hips and buttocks, thinking about the muscles that would have been a little more tense and used and heavier. And then over that, I did a cross contour showing the kind of, the form, the three-dimensionality. And I feel like I really have a lot of thinking to do and kind of feeling this out. One thing that Nicolaides talks about is that you want to imagine that you are almost like adding clay, like a ceramicist who's adding one layer over the next, kind of building your form from the inside out. So I feel like I've got a lot of growth I can do here. I'd love to see what you guys came up with, anything that really worked, anything that didn't. Barbara. Very nice. That's beautiful. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that contour teamed up really nicely. Mary. Oh, beautiful. Yes, really nice. Showing that the musculature really well there. And oh, I love that last model as well. Bob. Very nice. Yeah. Yeah, that was one thing that stood out to me was the hair would be so much lighter. How to show that difference in texture and weight. Diane, I see you. Spotlight that one. Oh, and she's got the frame. We love the square. Even if you bust out of it, it's great for proportions. Very nice. Good, Zach. Excellent. I'm really loving the kind of horizontal approach to your model drawing and that tension in those back muscles. Very good. Gail, beautiful work, Gail. Wow. Yeah. I've got to get my pencils out. That's really, I think you nailed it. Excellent. Maria. You know, I was thinking about how uncomfortable those feet must be because all of the weight has got to be just like squish on those feet. And I really showed that by concentrating that there. Yeah, so think about like that inner form, that weight in the inner form. Very nice. Linda, yes, Linda Halpert. Oh my gosh. Sorry. Other Linda got knocked out and has been waiting. But okay. Excellent. Very nice. Yeah, it really showed that three-dimensional form of the buttocks. Like it was very round. Sorry about that, Linda. We were drawing so much.
It's okay.
I see you. Let me pop that one up. Oh, yeah. Wait,
That's-
hold your paper up a little bit more, higher. We're kind of just seeing the top of her. Excellent work.
nice.
Yes, and even in that, yeah, in the base. Okay, I got a note from one of our very physical people. Marjorie, I see you. Mary's a acrobat. She said, if you were sitting in that pose, all the weight would be in the knees and shins. So from someone who knows better than I was just thinking the knees would be uncomfortable. But since we can't see the knees and shins. Excellent. Yeah, Marjorie. I think what you're doing really well there is pressing down harder on your pencil in the areas that are recessing and moving away. That helps show that three-dimensional form really nicely. That's great work, everybody. Did everybody who wanted to share? Yes, Carol, I see you, but can't hear you if you had something to share. But in the meantime, I'm going to show off Renata. Oh, I love that scribble, Renata. Very nice.
Really nice.
Mm-hmm. Very expressive way to show that weight measurement. It doesn't have to be horizontal lines or neat lines at all. Yes, Carol, did you have a question or want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I can show you what I did, and then I can point out the question. Like, he talked about not being confused with light and shadow. So, like, this arm was actually quite in light, but in terms of pressing where it's going away from you. So I tried pressing where it was going away from me. And the same, and there's weight, well, probably not on the very tips of the feet. So again, I mean, that there seemed to me to be a tension between coming forward and going back and the question of weight. And I'm not sure I resolved it very well. It was a question. And then trying to escape from the actual way the figure is lit.
Yes.
Which he said we shouldn't be paying attention to.
Right. Which is so hard because, of course, when you are looking with the naked eye, that's the first thing you see is the light. We're so normally focused on drawing and painting light. But yes, do your best to draw what you imagine the mass or that heaviness of the form to be. And I think that's exactly kind of the tension that we're going to be wrestling with here is on some points we're really trying to illustrate the heaviness and where the weight might be the darkest with our scribbles on the form, but at the same time using that darker line where things press away. So I think that's exactly why I'm going to share my screen again. If we look at Nicolaides' examples, so many of them are just dark, smudgy scribbles that, you know, kind of move between one or the other, depending on the artist who is drawing out these model drawings. So here we have, again, this is where I got those images, the examples from the book. This artist, and kind of looks like the same artist, focused more here on perhaps the cross contour aspect and pressing down harder where the form goes away from us and recesses. Whereas here it feels like it's more on the weight. So we're just going to have to keep experimenting. There's no one answer. It's another really nice model drawing that focuses more on darkening where things are recessing, pressing down farther where things are moving away from us. And he talks a lot about this, the sensation of modeling. That's why I think this is a particularly good chapter for you to go through and actually read yourself because, yeah, Nicolaides is the master here. So, great job, everyone. We made it through 2 more crazy exercises from Nicolaides. Thank you so much. I'm going to stick around for more questions if anybody has more questions, or if you want to talk about anything that happened last week, or if you have any tech stuff.
I don't get
Otherwise, I'm going to
I do not get this.
next time.
The
What was that, Marjorie? No, not
don't get this. No. Just don't get it at all. I mean, like that elephant was very pretty. But I don't, that almost felt like it was shadow and light as opposed to weight.
Well,
because if the light was shining on the elephant, the tusk would have been bright. And,
sure. Yeah. And the trick to that one, I'm just going to pop the elephant up one more time, is just because of the way that the light is here, and perhaps this isn't the best example ever, but the areas that are coming out more toward us are areas that would be hit by the light and appear lighter if a light was shining on it. So the way that light works is very similar to the way that a model drawing might look, but if there's extreme shadow on a model, kind of ignore that. So
isn't this also sort of relative, where you've got the trunk and it's dark on both sides and then lighter in the middle, and then where this crease is between the trunk and the eye, it's dark as it goes into that crease and lightens up, but they're all sort of relative to each other and not the whole animal, what's closest and what's farthest, but each sort of part of it. Is
that sounds
true
to me?
Okay.
But according to Nicolaides, shouldn't the sides of the trunk be lighter?
No, because
No, it's
they're
going away.
wrapping away, almost like if you imagine wrapping your hand around a cylinder.
Yeah.
The trunk has that cylindrical shape, so as the sides go away from you into depth, if you're pressing down harder, it does appear to create a shadow.
I have a question about how you're describing what's closer and further from you in comparison to what I thought we were looking at, which was where the weight, the heaviness is. So, for example, if you looked at one of the figures we did where, let's say a ballet dancer is in position 1, 2, or 3, they could have their weight on the front leg, which is where the heaviness is, but it's not receding. The other leg is behind it.
Right.
So are we evaluating for relative distance from us, or are we looking at where the weight of the heaviness in terms of weight of the body, where the pressure, where they're holding their weight?
So that will be, the key to that is that's the difference between a weight drawing versus the model drawing. In the weight drawing, you're thinking exclusively about where the heaviness of the model is, where you would focus on, as in your example, the ballerina leg that has more weight on it, whether or not it is closer or farther to you. So in a weight drawing, it's all about the weight and scribbling in the areas that you feel would be holding the heaviest areas.
But didn't you say though that we are supposed to do a weight drawing first, and then from that add cross contouring and get the model?
Right. And
so if you have the weight, but if you have the weight on the front leg darker, because that's where the model is in the ballerina example, how do you get it light compared to? It's sort of like you're switching your apples and oranges. You're not really using a consistent. Emphasizing what you already started with.
Yeah.
Maybe
he doesn't want us to be consistent.
In the book, it does say to carry the preceding step one step further, beginning with that weight drawing. However, to shift from then going to thinking about depth, and that was that whole question of, is something closer to us or farther away from us? That's just a question of depth. Is the thing that I'm looking at closer to me in perspective or farther away? Now, what I suspect is that some of these artists in their model drawings, especially this elephant, I don't believe that this person would have come in and done a weight drawing first. There is a kind of a historical issue with this whole book, actually, is that Nicolaides actually died very young before this book was published. So whenever they decided to publish it, it was posthumous, and he wasn't able to illustrate all of the exercises
Correct.
that we wanted to, and they had to go in and just find examples that probably aren't maybe what Nicolaides would have wanted to show us, because I think you're right, that elephant drawing especially doesn't show the weight, but it is a good example of that concept of modeling. But we have ended up with a lot of questions here, and I think that's what our drawings are going to have to explore and kind of try and answer, is what works best for your ability to think in terms of heaviness, weight, depth, form. As long as you're mentally really concentrated on that three-dimensional heaviness, you're in the right place. And in the end, these exercises are only going to help us whenever we're doing drawings we really care about, that we want to look good. These can be scribbly, jumbly messes. It's just a matter of shifting your mentality, of your awareness to think, this thing that I'm drawing, I want it to look heavy. And in this chapter, Nicolaides talks about how, you know, we talk about three-dimensionality all the time in art classes, but my students still come and they do these precious little line drawings that are just outlines. We're trying to get away from outlines and show the weight,
Yes.
whether it's a paper plate or a silver plate. So I've got some experimenting to do.
I would ask, in that example you just mentioned with the silver plate and the silver cup and the glass cup, I wonder if you could demonstrate or show how you would draw exactly the same objects, just a cylinder, for example, and emphasize the weight versus the modeled version.
I would want to practice before I feel like I would do a good drawing off the bat, like looking. I can try. What I know I would do is I would use more pressure. Whenever I was doing like the heavier drawing of like the silver cup or whatever, I would use more pressure. I would probably draw the lighter object much more quickly because I wouldn't use as many lines.
Wouldn't it be more of an outline also?
Probably, because it doesn't have that weight. So the weight drawing would be almost non-existent.
It would look more like a contour drawing, actually.
Oh, it would be more of like the cross contour if I was doing a modeled drawing.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
And also, yeah, it comes back to pressure on the paper. And one thing in the chapter, I'm just going to keep saying it and again. This is such a good chapter to read because nobody can say it like Nicolaides did. And that's the reason why this book has changed art classes around the world. He basically invented a lot of these things. But he talks about how at that time, people would draw clouds like they were anvils floating through the sky, but there are little portraits of women walking down the street that look like balloons that are about to float up into the air because they don't have a sense of weight, where the little women are being drawn almost like little circular balloons. And I can't even conceive of what those clouds must have looked like.
Wouldn't it also be the difference between not just pressure, but also the line width? If you had something heavy and you had a much wider line from your pencil?
I would think so. And you know what? I'm going to take back what I said about using pen for this week. I think pencil or a charcoal would be best. The Conte crayon, like Linda Halpert was using, that's another good one, because that pressure is going to come through so much better if you're using something that's not just ink. Yes, Linda, Sana.
So I wonder if it would be helpful with doing this exercise, trying to think about both the weight and the cross country at the same time is kind of difficult. Would it be helpful, do you think, to do it first as a weight drawing and then kind of go back and do the cross contour as like a
Absolutely. And I'm sorry, Linda, you're a little quiet, so I'm just going to repeat the question. She said, managing both of those at the same time when you're doing the model drawings, the weight and the cross contour is too much, absolutely just start first with the weighted drawing when you're doing the modeled drawing, and then add that kind of cross contour on top. And it's not a strict cross contour in the way that we have been doing the cross contour. It's focused more on imagine yourself as a sculptor, putting more pressure on your pencil as things recede away from you. So in the end, honestly, this is the kind of thing that it's a kinesthetic practice. This is something we have to do with our body, playing around with pressure on the page. So please keep the questions coming in the group this week, because we're going to run into more conundrums as we go along. And please do post your work if you find something that works or something that really doesn't work, so we can all learn from each other. Okie dokie. Well, good luck, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Thanks. Yeah.
Jessica, I have a question or a statement.
For anyone else with more questions, otherwise,
Thank you.
drawing.
I tried the model drawing in pen, and it actually looks better. I just want to show.
Oh, that looks great.
Does that look better than the pencil?
Hold it up just a little bit more. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
yeah.
And I've been drawing in pen because you can't erase it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also seeing it's easier to do.
Okay, that's a turning point. Not many people come to that conclusion, but
Right. No, but I mean that has more of a weighted feeling than my pencil drawing. So I don't know.
perfect. Well, if it feels that way to you, stick with it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good week. Bye-bye.
Have a great
Bye, everybody.